The crying baby and the quiet woman's baby would not stop crying. The sky outside was gray and still. The wind tapped gently on the glass windows of Keanu Reeves' home, like fingers asking to come in. Inside the mansion, everything was silent except for the cries of a 6-month-old boy whose mother had died just 3 weeks ago. Keanu sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. His hands hung between his knees. His face was tired, older than yesterday, older than any movie had shown him to be. Grief hung on his shoulders like a heavy coat. He had tried everything, feeding, singing, rocking, but nothing worked. The baby's cries grew louder, sharper, full of something no bottle or lullaby could fix. Then, slowly, the crying stopped. Keanu blinked. The sudden silence was strange, almost frightening. He stood up and walked down the hallway barefoot. The floors were cold. His heart was louder than his steps. As he reached the nursery, he paused. The door was slightly open, and inside, he saw her. Maria. She was new. She had only been working in the house for days. No one knew much about her. A quiet black woman, maybe 30 years old, always respectful, always watching, never asking questions. She came from an agency after Keanu's assistant said they needed help. She had been hired to clean, not to care for the child. But there she was, sitting in the rocking chair, holding his son and breastfeeding him. Keanu froze. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. Part of him was confused. Part of him was angry. But mostly, he felt something else, something deeper, something he couldn't name. The baby was calm, peaceful. His tiny fingers were wrapped around the edge of Maria's shirt. Her eyes were closed. Her face looked like someone praying. Soft tears slid down her cheeks, but her body remained still, strong, patient. Keanu stepped back quietly. He didn't want to break the moment, but his mind was racing. What just happened? Why was she doing that? Was it safe? Was it right? He waited until she came downstairs later, holding the now sleeping baby. He looked at her. His voice was quiet but firm. "Why did you do that?" She stopped. Her eyes didn't look away. Her arms stayed around the baby, and she said, gently, "Because he needed it. And so did I." Keanu stared at her. "Explain," he said. And so she did. In the simple words of a woman who had lived a hard life, Maria told him everything. She had lost her own baby 7 months ago. A daughter. No family would hire her after. No one wanted a grieving woman. She had milk she couldn't give, arms with no child to hold. She had been waking up every night to ghost cries that weren't there. Until now, "I didn't plan it," she whispered. When he cried like that, something in me woke up. I sat down and he stopped. Keanu sat down slowly. He didn't interrupt. He had no idea what to say. The mansion suddenly felt too big, too clean, too cold. And in front of him stood a woman who had crossed an invisible line, not with violence, but with love. "What if I had walked in and fired you? On the spot?" he asked. She didn't blink. "I would have left, but I wouldn't regret it. You knew it was a risk." "Yes, but I chose kindness over fear." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. And then Keanu did something strange. He asked her to sit with the baby. At the long dining table where no one had sat since his wife died. He made tea. He listened. And slowly, very slowly, something shifted in him. Not fully, not yet, but enough. Maria didn't ask for anything. She didn't beg to stay, but she didn't apologize either. She wasn't a maid in that moment. She was a mother. And for the first time in weeks, Keanu's son was asleep. The silence of the house wasn't painful anymore. It was healing. And so was Maria's presence. But outside the walls of that mansion, someone was watching. A neighbor had seen Maria arrive that day, and later they would say something cruel. And that cruel thing would start a fire Keanu never saw coming. But for now, the fire was still a spark, and in the warmth of the quiet house, something new was being born. Something bigger than rules, something louder than fear. It was just the beginning, but it was the most important part. A decision was coming, and it would change everything. Whispers in the hallway. Next morning, the house felt different. Not brighter, not happier, just quieter. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when the sky still holds its breath. Keanu walked into the nursery with cautious steps, half expecting to hear his son's cry fill the room. But instead, he found Maria again, sitting in the same chair, humming something soft. The baby slept in her arms like he belonged there. Keanu watched for a while before saying, "You didn't have to do that again." Maria looked up. She didn't smile, but she didn't look ashamed either. "I know," she said. Keanu sat on the edge of the crib. He rubbed his face. He hadn't slept much, even though the baby had. Not because he was worried about Maria, but because something about yesterday kept playing in his mind. She had fed his child from her own body. In a world full of rules, contracts, lawsuits, background checks, that kind of act was either seen as love or as madness. Keanu wasn't sure what the world would say, but something deep in his chest told him it was the first real act of care that house had seen since his wife died. "He didn't cry once last night," he whispered. "That's good," she said, standing slowly, placing the baby gently in the crib. "It means he felt safe." He nodded. But just as she turned to leave the room, Maria paused. Her face changed. "You should know something," she said. Double quotes, "What?" "The neighbor across the street. She was watching from her window when I came in yesterday." She looked upset. Keanu frowned. He knew that neighbor. Mrs. Hartwell, a woman who smiled too hard in public and whispered too loud in private. She had written passive-aggressive notes about leaves falling into her yard, and once called the police when a delivery truck parked near her driveway. "Did she say anything to you?" "No," Maria said. "But this morning, when I got off the bus, she was outside. She stared at me like I wasn't supposed to be here." Keanu sighed. "I'll handle it," he said. Maria nodded and walked down the hallway. Her steps were soft, careful, like someone used to staying out of the way. Keanu stood in the nursery for a long time after she left. Then he made a call. His assistant answered. Surprised to hear from him. "Can you look into Maria's background?" Keanu asked. "Why? Is something wrong?" "No," he said. "But I need to be ready in case someone tries to make it look like something is." His assistant didn't ask questions. She understood how the world worked. By noon, the whispers had begun. Not inside the house but outside. At the cafe near the end of the street, two women sat at a table near the window. One of them had a phone in her hand, showing a blurry photo. "That's her," the woman said. "The maid. I saw her holding the baby, not like a babysitter, like a mother." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying something isn't right. It's weird, intimate, unsafe." Keanu heard about it 2 hours later. His gardener told him, then his driver. Then a man from the agency called and said someone had reported inappropriate contact between his housemaid and his infant son. They want to send a replacement. The agency man said nervously, "They're afraid of bad press." Keanu didn't answer for a moment. He stared at the long hallway, where Maria was folding laundry with quiet care. Then he spoke. "Don't send anyone," he said. Double quotes, "Sir. Are you sure it could become public? Then let it." And he hung up. That evening, Maria found a white envelope on the kitchen counter. Her hands shook when she picked it up. She had seen enough of these in her life to know what it meant. Termination. But when she opened it, she found something else. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't even a check. It was a letter. Handwritten. It said, "I don't want you to leave. Not because of what people think. Not because of fear. You cared for him when no one else could. I saw that. And no matter what happens outside this house, I trust what I saw. Stay." Her hands trembled. Not from fear. But from the weight of being believed. Later that night, as Maria stood by the nursery door, she turned and asked, "Are you sure about this?" Keanu was sitting in the hallway, leaning against the wall. "I've done a lot of things in life I wasn't sure about," he said. "But this feels right. People will say things. Let them. They'll judge you. They already do." Maria looked down at her hands. "I'm not trying to replace her," she whispered. "I know," he said gently. "But my son doesn't need a replacement. He needs love. And somehow you gave him that." A silence passed between them. But it wasn't empty. It was full of grief. Of hope. Of something new forming. But outside, the fire was growing. Someone had posted something online that a photo. A story. And it would spread faster than Keanu could imagine. His name, his baby, his maid, and the world would demand answers. But Keanu wasn't going to give them what they expected. He was going to tell the truth, even if it cost him everything. The photo that broke the silence site started with a single post. Just one picture. A blurry image taken through a window by someone too curious for their own good. The caption read, "Why is Keanu Reeves letting a maid breastfeed his child? Is this safe? Is this even legal?" At first, it got a few likes. Then the comments came, some kind, some cruel, some filled with questions, some filled with hate. Within 3 hours, it was on gossip blogs. Within 6, a news outlet had published a story without checking facts. And by the time Keanu Reeves woke up the next morning, the entire internet was on fire. Keanu didn't check his phone right away. He was feeding his son, letting the bottle rest gently against the baby's lips. Maria stood nearby, folding blankets. The room was peaceful until his assistant called. "Keanu," her voice was tight. "You need to see this." "What is it?" "You've gone viral, and not in a good way." He looked at the screen. There it was. His name trending. Articles popping up one after another. Actor Keanu Reeves caught in shocking act involving maid. Internet divided over. Emotional moment caught on camera. Reckless parenting or quiet heroism. Maria stood silently. She didn't ask what was wrong. She knew. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "This is my fault." Keanu shook his head. "No, it's not." But Maria stepped back. She looked down at her uniform, then at the baby in the crib, who was now smiling in full. "I should go," she whispered. "Don't," Keanu said quickly. "Please, don't. This is your name, your life, your reputation. I can't destroy it." "You're not destroying anything. They don't know the truth." She looked at him. Her eyes were filled with quiet pain. "They don't want the truth," she said. "They want a story." Keanu stood up. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "Then let's give them the real one." Later that day, he made a decision that shocked even his closest friends. He invited a reporter to the house, not a gossip writer, not a tabloid chaser, but a woman named Claire Dixon, known for telling human stories with care and truth. When she arrived, Maria almost didn't come out of the guest room. She was afraid. Afraid of being turned into something she wasn't. Afraid of being twisted by headlines again. But Keanu promised her something. "I'll sit beside you the whole time," he said. "We'll speak together." So she came, and Claire listened. No cameras, no lights. Just a small recorder and a notepad. "Start from the beginning," Claire said gently. So Keanu did. He told her about the baby's endless crying. About the sleepless nights. About his grief after losing his wife. He told her how Maria came not to care for the child but to clean. And how, in a moment of instinct and compassion, she did something no one else had dared to do. Then Maria spoke. Her voice was soft, but full of truth. She talked about her own child, about loss, about the ache of unused milk and empty arms, about the moment she heard the baby cry and didn't think she just acted. When the interview ended, Claire didn't say much. She just nodded and said, "Thank you. I'll tell it the way it happened." Keanu looked at Maria and said, "Now we wait." Meanwhile, the internet got louder. More people picked sides. Some said it was a beautiful act of human love. Others called it dangerous and unprofessional. Some used cruel words filled with hate, race, and fear. And then the agency called again. This time, they were more forceful. "Mr. Reeves," the voice said, "we have to officially end Maria's contract. We've never had a case like this. It's complicated." Keanu didn't raise his voice. He just said 4 words. "Then I'll hire her." The line went silent. "You're serious?" "Yes. She's not staff anymore. She's family." And with that, he hung up. The article came out 2 days later. It was titled, "The Woman Who Healed a Child's Cry," and the actor who stood by her. It was honest. Emotional. Beautiful. The internet paused. For the first time, the noise softened. Comments changed. Some apologized. Some opened their hearts. Some said things like, "I never understood until now." Maria read it alone, sitting by the window with the baby sleeping in her arms. When Keanu walked in, She didn't say anything. She just handed him the baby and said, "Thank you for not running." He looked at her. "Thank you," he said, "for staying when I needed someone most." But the story was not over. Not yet. Because one man saw the article and didn't like what he read. He was from Maria's past, someone she never expected to hear from again. And his rival would bring more than just old memories. He would bring a threat to everything they had built. And this time, even Keanu might not be able to stop it. The man from her past 3 days passed. The house was quiet again, not the heavy silence of grief, but the peaceful kind that comes when a baby sleeps soundly, and two people learn to trust each other. Keanu no longer felt like a man surviving loss. He felt like a father finding a way back to life. And Maria smiled more. Just a little. She had moved into the guest room downstairs, close to the nursery. She still cleaned, she still cooked, but she was no longer just the maid. She was Maria, and the baby loved her. He reached for her when he cried. He smiled at her voice. He rested easily in her arms, like he remembered her heartbeat from somewhere deeper than words. But peace has a way of drawing shadows, and one came walking straight toward them. His name was Darren. He was tall, lean, and dressed in expensive clothes that didn't match his eyes. His eyes were cold. He showed up at the front gate of the Reeves estate with a smirk and a tone that made the security guard uneasy. "Tell Maria her husband is here." When Keanu heard that, his heart froze. Husband? He didn't even know Maria had one. But something about the way Darren said it felt wrong. Not loving, not kind, like someone holding a chain. Maria stood at the edge of the driveway, her arms folded tightly. She didn't move closer. Keanu stood behind her, silent but present. What are you doing here, Darren?" Maria asked. He grinned. "I saw your little story in the news. You really know how to play the sympathy card. Black maid saves rich man's baby. Beautiful, touching." "Leave," she said firmly. "Easy," Darren said, raising both hands. "I'm just here to talk. After all, we're still married, aren't we?" Keanu glanced at Maria, surprised. Her voice didn't waver. "Not for long. The divorce is filed. You didn't even respond. Wasn't interested. Until now." Darren stepped closer. "But now I see your face everywhere. People talking about you like you're some kind of saint. And him," he pointed to Keanu, "you're living in his house, feeding his baby. That's got a price." Keanu stepped forward. "What do you want?" Darren looked him up and down. Double quotes money, attention, maybe both. "Depends on how polite you want me to be." Maria's voice shook with quiet fury. "You hit me, Darren. You left me bleeding on the floor. You ignored our daughter's funeral. You don't get to walk back into my life because I finally found something good." Darren smiled wider. "No one saw that. No proof. Just your word." Keanu's voice dropped low. "Get off this property." "Or what?" Darren taunted. Keanu didn't raise his fists. He didn't yell. He simply took out his phone and pressed a button. 2 security guards appeared from behind the hedges, escorted him off the premises. Keanu said, "He's not to come back." Darren laughed as they took his arms. "This ain't over, baby." He shouted at Maria, "You'll hear from me again." Maria didn't flinch. She just stood there. But when the gate shut, she broke. She sank to the ground, trembling. Keanu knelt beside her. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I didn't want you to see that part of me," she whispered. "You don't have to hide anything here," he replied. "Not anymore." That night, Maria couldn't sleep. Neither could Keanu. They sat across from each other in the kitchen, the baby monitor between them. Maria finally spoke. "He was good at first, charming, strong. I thought I was lucky." She looked down, until the first time he raised his hand. Keanu stayed quiet. "I stayed too long," she said. "I thought if I just kept being good, kept forgiving him, he'd change." "A lot of people think that," Keanu said. "Doesn't mean you were weak, just kind." Maria looked at him. "He's not done. He'll find a way to use this against us. Then we'll be ready." She shook her head. "I don't want your name dragged through this. You don't get to carry that weight alone anymore." Her eyes welled up. "I'm not used to that." Keanu smiled softly. "Get used to it." The next day, Darren did what they feared. He sold a story to a tabloid. He claimed he had been married to Maria during the time she breastfed the baby. He hinted at inappropriate intentions between Maria and Keanu. He used every cruel word he could. The internet lit up again, but this time, Keanu acted fast. He held a press conference. He stood in front of microphones with Maria beside him. He spoke clearly, calmly, with his hand on her shoulder. This woman saved my child's life, not by being perfect, not by following rules, but by being human. Anyone who has a problem with that can talk to me. The reporters asked questions. Keanu answered everyone, but the moment that changed everything, it wasn't what he said. It was what Maria said. A soft voice into a loud room. I'm not ashamed, not of loving this child, not of standing here, and not of surviving what I did. The room went silent. And somewhere in that silence, truth found a place to land. But Darren wasn't finished. He filed a legal claim. He said Maria abandoned their marriage illegally and had no right to work for Keanu without his permission. It was nonsense. But dangerous. Because lies, when loud enough, can still hurt the innocent. Keanu looked at Maria one night and said, "We'll fight it." But Maria shook her head. "No." She whispered, "I have to win this myself, not because you're Keanu Reeves, but because I deserve to stand." And in that moment, Keanu understood something deeper than before. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was rising. And soon, the world would see what he already knew. Maria wasn't just a maid. She was a mother. A warrior, and the strongest woman he'd ever met. The courtroom, and the cradle courtroom was cold. Not the kind of cold you feel in your skin, but the kind that lives in your bones. Maria sat at the front, her hands folded in her lap. Her dress was plain. Her eyes were tired but steady. She didn't wear makeup. She didn't wear fear. On the other side of the room, Darren leaned back in his chair like he owned the building. His lawyer whispered in his ear. He smirked and looked around like this was all a joke. But for Maria, it wasn't a joke. This was her life. This was her freedom. And she wasn't alone. Keanu sat behind her. He didn't wear sunglasses. He didn't hide. He was just present, like a stone standing silently in the tide. The judge entered. Papers shuffled. Voices echoed. Then the trial began. Darren's lawyer spoke first. He painted a picture of Maria as an unstable woman, someone who had walked away from her marriage, who now lived in a millionaire's house and acted like the child's mother. He said she had no right to work for Keanu while still legally married. He called it suspicious. He used words like inappropriate, emotional manipulation, and financial exploitation. Maria didn't blink. But Keanu's fists were clenched in his lap. Then it was Maria's turn. She stood slowly, walked to the front. And spoke, not like someone fighting to be seen, but like someone who finally saw herself. "I'm not here to argue about what Darren says I did," she said. "I'm here to tell you what he did." She spoke of the night she cried in silence, the bruises, the threats, the broken door, the baby who never met his father because Darren was out drinking. When their daughter died in the hospital. She didn't cry while saying it. Her voice stayed. Even strong. Double quotes, "I left because staying would have killed me," she said. The judge listened. The room was silent. And then Maria added something unexpected. "I didn't come into Mr. Reeves' house looking for rescue," she said. "I came because I needed a job. And what I found was not pity, it was purpose. His child needed comfort. I had it to give. That's not a crime, that's compassion." The judge leaned back, thoughtful. Then Keanu stood. He wasn't asked to, but he spoke anyway. "If protecting a baby and offering comfort is illegal," he said, "then we're punishing the wrong people in this world." The judge made no decision that day. Court was adjourned. But as Maria walked out, she felt lighter. She had spoken the truth. And no matter what the papers said, the internet said, or Darren said, she had stood tall. That night, she sat on the porch with Keanu. The baby lay in her arms, asleep. The sky was full of stars. "You were incredible today," Keanu said. She looked down. "I was scared. You didn't show it." "I didn't want to." She looked up at him. "Do you ever wonder why you let me stay?" Keanu smiled faintly. "Every day." She waited. And then he said, "And every day, I find a better reason than the last." Maria laughed softly. "Do you think people will forget the scandal?" Keanu shook his head. "No, but I think they'll remember the truth more." The next morning, Maria received an envelope. Inside was a ruling. The judge had reviewed all the evidence and had dismissed Darren's claims. The divorce would proceed. Maria was free. No fines. No damages. No chains. She was free. Keanu found her in the kitchen, holding the letter to her chest. He didn't say anything. He just hugged her. Not as a hero, not as a boss, but as someone who had seen a woman rise from ash and become fire. But Darren wasn't finished. He had one last plan, and this one wasn't about courts or articles. This one was about revenge. Real revenge. One night, while the house was quiet and the baby asleep, a security camera near the garage caught a shadow. A figure in a hood. Cutting wires. Pouring something near the side of the house. Then walking away fast. 2 hours later, Maria woke to smoke. Flames. Panic. She ran to the nursery barefoot, coughing. The baby was crying. Loud. Frantic. Keanu was already there, fighting through smoke to reach the crib. He grabbed the baby. Maria grabbed the blankets. Together, they ran out through the kitchen door as the alarm blared and lights flashed. The fire department arrived minutes later. The fire was small, contained, fast. But it was enough. Enough to send a message. Enough to say, "I can still get close." The police found signs of arson. And footprints, and a lighter with initials. They had no proof Darren did it, but they had suspicion. Enough to open an investigation. But for Keanu, that wasn't enough. He had stayed silent long enough. He looked at Maria and said, "We're going to finish this, not with fear, with truth." And this time, they wouldn't be speaking in court. They'd be speaking to the world, on camera. In their own words. Because some stories are too important to be whispered. They need to be shouted. Loud and clear. And that's exactly what Keanu was about to do. The interview that changed everything. Studio was small. No flashing lights. No red carpets. Just 2 chairs, a baby stroller in the corner, and a camera facing forward. Keanu Reeves sat on one chair. Maria sat on the other. Between them, silence. But not the kind that felt empty. This silence held everything. Pain, truth, strength, and a choice to speak when it mattered most. The interview wasn't planned by a media team. Keanu didn't hire a publicist. He uploaded it himself. A live stream. No edits. No scripts. Just then. To people. One story. And the entire world watching. Keanu started with a quiet breath. "I never wanted to share this publicly," he said. "Not because we have something to hide, but because it was private. It was about grief, about healing, about a baby who needed love, and the woman who gave it to him." Maria looked at her hands for a moment. Then at the camera. "My name is Maria," she said. "I'm not a celebrity. I'm not famous. I'm just a woman who lost her child. And when I came to this house, I thought I was just going to clean. Instead, I found a baby who cried like mine did. And I did what I knew how to do. I comforted him." They took turns speaking. Telling the story. From the moment Maria first breastfed the baby to the fire that nearly cost them everything. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't insult anyone. They just spoke. With truth. And the world listened. People commented by the thousands. Some crying. Some apologizing for their early judgments. Some sharing their own stories of loss, of healing, of unexpected love. Maria ended the interview with words no one forgot. "When I lost my daughter, I thought I lost my purpose. But purpose isn't something you chase. Sometimes it finds you in a stranger's cry, in a child's hand, in the quiet moments where you choose love over fear." Keanu added softly, "And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth, even when it hurts." The video was viewed 10 million times in the first day. Maria received letters from women across the world, mothers who had lost children, nurses, caregivers, even a few doctors who said, "She did the right thing, the human thing." The police investigation into Darren deepened. They found his fingerprints on the lighter. He was arrested and charged. The fire hadn't destroyed anything important, but it had revealed something very real: how far bitterness could go when faced With Grace. Darren's single quotes S case didn't last long in court. He confessed. And in his final hearing, he said something no one expected. I thought she would break, he muttered, but she didn't, and she never would. Months passed. The media noise died down. But something new grew quietly. Keanu started a foundation with Maria as the director. It was called Arms Open. Its purpose was simple: to help grieving mothers, women leaving abuse, and newborns without families. No headlines. No red carpets. Just real work. Maria moved into a house nearby. Still close, still part of the family. But now with space to breathe. To rebuild. To grow. One day, as she sat under a tree with the baby on her lap, she looked up at Keanu. He was walking slowly across the grass. His face softer than before. Less haunted, you know. She said, I still hear her sometimes. Your daughter? Maria nodded. In my dreams, she tells me I'm doing okay. Keanu sat beside her. You're doing more than okay. They sat in silence again, the kind that means something. The baby slept in her arms. Safe. Whole. Loved. The world never fully stopped talking about what happened. Some called it strange. Some called it brave. Some didn't understand it at all. But Keanu and Maria didn't need the world to understand. They had lived it, and in their quiet choices, they had shown the world what real courage looked like. Not in loud speeches, but in quiet love. Not in perfection. But in truth. And that baby, he grew up loved by two hearts that had been broken once, but found new rhythm together. In a world full of noise, this was their story. A story of a mother who wasn't meant to stay, and a father who didn't expect to feel again, and the child who brought them both back to life.